Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Tennessee Congressman John Rose. Congressman Rose, before we leave this topic, what was going on the Hill on January 6th, you mentioned the heroism of the Capitol Police, yet you voted against a resolution on the House floor that would have given them congressional medals of honor for what happened with that. Why did you vote against that?
Well, you know, it's been my long-held belief, not only in my service in Congress, but in volunteer roles that I've had, that when you confer what in this case would be the highest honor that the Congress can confer, that being the Congressional Gold Medal, it's better if there's a little historical perspective in place when that happens. And so the findings that were a part of the bill proposing the Congressional Gold Medal included information that, frankly, has turned out, as we now know, to be inaccurate in terms of how it characterized some of the, some of the outcome of what happened on January 6th. So it's certainly not that I don't support and honor the sacrifice and the heroism of the Capitol Police and the District of Columbia, District of Columbia police that, that stood in harm's way that day to protect us. But I think it would be better if we let a little bit more time pass and got the investigations completed and fully understand what happened on those days. And we shouldn't politicize, it seems to me, the conferring of these awards. I think of the recent, I recently joined in sponsoring a bill to award a Congressional Gold Medal to the last surviving Congressional Medal of Honor recipient from Tennessee. And so I think, and that's happening after his service is 70 years in the rearview mirror. And I think that is when it's best to give those kind of hallmark awards to folks.
So Congressman, what are we going to do about keeping the Capitol safe? The Congress still has not acted to figure that out. On the one hand, it needs to be the people's building. It needs to be open to the people, yet the people in there and the people who work there and go there need to be safe. And we don't seem to be able to figure out how to do that quite yet. There's been a second attack.
Well, I think if you look at the long history of protection of the Capitol Police and the Sergeant at Arms have done a pretty remarkable job. Obviously, the events of the last few months have exposed some areas where perhaps a little bit of adjustment is needed. But I think what you said is right. It is the people's house, and the people should have access to their legislators. And I think it doesn't need to be turned into an armed encampment. While I do believe fences work and walls work, in this case, I think separating the people from their elected representatives is a mistake. So I think we can make modest, measured security enhancements around the Capitol in response to what we've seen happen in recent months that will improve the protection of the people who work in the Capitol complex and will improve the protection of those who come here to visit and experience the great institutions of our democracy.
Congressman, all across the country, an average more than 3 million Americans every day are getting shots to protect themselves against the COVID-19 virus. You don't appear to be one of those. At least that's the last time I read you had not done it. Why have you not taken the shots?
I actually have taken the shot, actually completed the 2-shot regimen of the Pfizer vaccine back in January. And as I have traveled around the district and as folks like you have asked me about this, I have answered that I did get the vaccine and encourage others to get one of the vaccines when they have the opportunity to do so. But I think it is an important step.
Congressman, I have read reports as recently as just the last couple of weeks that you had not taken any of the vaccine. Did you take pictures of it? Did you put it out in your district? I mean, people are looking for the leaders to lead and step forward and show people that they have taken the shots, and I haven't seen pictures like that. Have you circulated them?
Sure, we have not circulated photos of me getting the shot, but I have answered that question when asked. And, I've tried to pursue kind of a balanced approach. I don't think that we should force people to get vaccinated, and I don't think that we should necessarily create some sort of sense that is required. On the other hand, I encourage folks to do it and believe that you should get vaccinated if you have the opportunity, particularly if you're one of those people who is at risk or you're in a frontline service role where you might be at great risk of getting the virus. So I definitely encourage people. I'm a big believer in vaccines and vaccinations. Obviously it has improved the standard and quality of life in our country over time, and it is one of the great remarkable developments of the COVID experience of the last year is that remarkably, we were able to develop a vaccine in really a record time. Obviously, a remarkable achievement for our great innovators in this country to get these vaccines to market. And so it is what is making it possible to get our kids back to school, get our businesses back open, and get the economy restored.
You visited the southern border in recent weeks. That's an area that's always been of concern for several administrations, for the huge number of people, at least recently, that have been coming there seeking asylum. What do we need to do to fix this? This is not something that just happened in the last few weeks. This has been going on in the last several administrations, yet we don't seem to be able to fix that or fix the overall immigration program.
Well, I think actually, if you look at the experience at the end of the Trump administration, the policies that President Trump had put in place were working and had dramatically reduced the illegal crossings at the border. So I think, sadly, what President Biden probably should have done, at least in the early days, is absolutely nothing. I think it is his announced change of policy that has really caused this to happen. And we see this as some of the leaders of the Northern Triangle countries respond to what they think has happened. So the president, unfortunately, telegraphed that folks should make their way to our southern border, and that has really exacerbated the problem there. And from my visit, I saw that firsthand. So we had migrant protection policies in place, the so-called Remain in Mexico policy that was working well. We had Title 42 policies with respect to the pandemic that were in place and were working, and we were building a wall. And interestingly, having been to the border and talking to the Customs and Border Patrol officers, they absolutely, to a person, say that the border wall works. And so we saw that firsthand. I stood at Monument 3 on the Texas-New Mexico border and looked at a section where the wall had been completed, and unfortunately a section where there was a gap. And the Border Patrol officers described in graphic terms how that causes trouble for them. And so, unfortunately, we see this crisis unfolding at the border. Many of these people coming here hoping to realize the American dream, and instead, first, they're going to have to experience the Biden nightmare.
Tennessee Congressman John Rose is our guest on Inside Politics. Back to continue our conversation after this break.